Hello everyone, welcome to Let's Crack UPSC CSE English. About me, I am Sandeep Bhushan. I have 8 years of teaching experience for civil services. I teach international relations, internal security, and in-depth analysis of editorials and articles which will be useful for prelims 2020 as well as mains 2020. The in-depth analysis is very much imperative for analytical and factual based questions in the prelims, and also a better understanding when you are going ahead with the descriptive answers in the mains examinations. Thereby, the importance of editorials is prerequisites for the UPSC examination. And this video is in regards to how to crack prelims 2020. And then you have a notification before getting into the topic, that is you have to subscribe for the Let's Crack UPSC CSE, which is India's largest learning platform. And once you get subscribed, you will have access to live and recorded courses from India's best educators. And the privileges you would get once you get subscribed are that you will have daily live classes wherein you can chat with your educator, engage in discussions, ask your doubts, and also be part of the answer polls. You can have live tests and quizzes wherein you can evaluate your preparation with our regular mock tests and quizzes. And you can also get detailed analysis on your performance. You also have the structured courses wherein all our courses are structured in line with UPSC exam syllabus, which will help you best prepare for the exam. And you also have the unlimited access. Upon subscription, you will get access to all our live and recorded courses, and you can also watch from your mobile or from your laptop. You also have the top educators at Unacademy like Sudarshan Gurjar, Roman Sainisa, Prakash Kumar, Ayush Sanghi, Ashish Malik, and then Venkatesh Chaturvedi, Rahul Agarwal, Shiv Prasad, Dr. Siddharth Arora, and many more. You also have the courses at UPSC CSE English, that is the polity, history, current affairs. You have also economy, geography, optional courses. You have science and technology, environment and ecology. You also have UPSC CSE batches, wherein along with this you also have the other courses like governance, practice and strategy, CSAT paper, ethics, integrity and aptitude, Indian society, social issues you have. You also have it on essay writing, internal security and answer writing courses. Along with this, you also have one course in regards to the interview preparation. So these are the UPSC CSE courses which are available on the Unacademy. And in regards to the subscription, UPSC CSE subscription, you have 12-month subscription and also you have 24-month subscription. For 12-month subscription, the original price is 40,000. And once you go ahead with the subscription using my code SBT10, you will get additional 10% on the 40,000, and then the amount after 10% would be 36,000. So in regards to the 24 months, the original price is 48,000. You can go ahead with subscription, and once you go ahead with subscription using my code SBT10, you would get 10% discount on the original price, that is 48,000. The amount would be up to 43,200. So what is important here is that when you're subscribing for 24 months, you are actually paying for 12 months and then 1 plus 1 month. That means 40,000 plus 8,000. So this is what you are paying for 24 months. So take the maximum benefit of the subscription for 24 months and make sure that you are being very much serious about the examination by 24 months, and then you can get the benefit not only of my classes but also the other top educators who would be teaching various other courses or subjects, and then maximum benefit you can avail by just immediately going ahead with the subscription, and you can subscribe with my code SBT10. And getting into the topic, that is the in-depth analysis of editorials and articles of the Indian newspaper. As I have said that yes, it is very imperative for you all as a civil servant aspirant that you need to focus in depth and you need to focus in regards to comprehensive manner of all the articles, editorials and also news items, trying to pick up the keywords which are essential, that it could be the part of the questions in your prelims and also main. Therefore, make sure that you are focusing on the editorials and articles, and this my session would also be very much beneficial for you. It would be very much helpful for you in regards to cracking prelims 2020, as well trying to score more marks for the mains 2020. So now we will get into the topic what we would discuss, that is in regards to the topic of pardon. So what is this pardon and why it is in news, we will look at. So this is a political pardon. This is an editorial which has come up with today, and then it is talking about the political pardon. So what does this pardon means, and what is that in regards to which country it is in regards to, we will look into it, and how best it is correct, and then what were the incidents, what actually has what is popped up, and the reasons, and then we will look into the entire aspect of the situation or the editorial. And then it is in regards to the Sri Lanka, wherein the Sri Lankan president Gotabaya Rajapaksa has nullified a rare instance of justice. This is very important. He has nullified a rare instance of justice being ensured by Sri Lanka's judicial system. So which was actually a case pending in the judicial system of Sri Lanka, and then President Rajapaksa has nullified the instance, or else the justice which is actually been taken up by the Sri Lankan judicial system. So what is that? He has gone ahead. He has gone ahead with the presidential pardon. So there was a pardon being taken up or being granted by the president of Sri Lanka, that is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, and that has taken place on March 27, 2020. And that pardon was granted to a Sri Lankan soldier, wherein he was involved in a death row. The reason he was involved in a death row of murdering 8 Tamil villages. So the pardon has, presidential pardon was to a Sri Lankan soldier, wherein he was on a death row for murdering 8 Tamil villages. We will look into all that, but it is in regards to the murdering 8 Tamil villages, and this has sparked justified outrage among those who have been demanding justice for the state for past crimes. So we have seen that there was crimes which have been taken up because of the Tamil war, LTT war, which has taken up. It was in regards to what you say, Sinhalese versus Tamilians. We know that there is lot of rift between the Sinhalese and then the Tamilians in Sri Lanka. And then we have also experienced, we have seen the Tamil war which has taken place, that is LTT war which has taken place. And during that time, the Sri Lankan soldier has being a part of death row for murdering 8 Tamil villagers. So these are, again, when we are emphasizing, they are Tamilian village. That is why I was trying to say that there is a rift in Sri Lanka in regards to the Sinhalese and then the Tamilians. So definitely the Sinhalese and Tamilians, there is a rift because they feel that the Tamilians who have been part, or else like migrant from the Indian side or South Indian Tamilians getting into the Sri Lanka, and the Sri Lankans majority is the Sinhalese, and then there is a rift between them both, and that has sparked the violence now because of the presidential pardon which has been given or granted to the Sri Lankan soldier. Because we have seen there were, lot of past crimes which have taken place during the LTT war, wherein there is lot of critics against the Sri Lankan soldiers itself, Sri Lankan soldiers, wherein they have, what do you say, a kind of been an uproar over the Tamilians. So this is the one which is creating a panic across the Sri Lankan, that is especially in regards to the Tamilians. And we also know that this could be the possibility that the presidential pardon which has taken place could be there is an electoral angle on this. So that because the Sri Lanka will go for parliamentary polls, which is actually set to be on 25th April of this year 2020, but probability of that it could be postponing because of the global pandemic, that is COVID-19. So we are that there is a possibility that there is critic that the presidential pardon for the Sri Lankan soldier is because an angle or from the view of the electoral or election which would take place, that is the parliamentary elections or the parliamentary polls, which could, which are due in the month of April 25th as of now, but could be postponed because of the global pandemic. So when we are looking at the presidential pardon, that is the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa nullifying the Sri Lankan judicial system and then pardoning it to the Sri Lankan soldiers, wherein there is a lot of outrage being taken up among the Tamilians for the justice, which are they are asking for the justice for the previous or the past crimes which the soldiers have actually been part of it. But the process of granting pardon may have been going on in the run up to the poll. So there is a clear imagination that the granting of the pardon could be on the basis of that the parliamentary elections are bound to take place, and it is bound to, what you say, take place. It is in the process of going ahead, the due in April 25th, on April 25th, but again it is not that confirmed because of the pandemic. And Sri Lankan constitution, here you need to look at a little point, because it could be that from the international events, it could be a question that on the basis of the Sri Lankan president pardon. Sri Lankan constitution, what does the Sri Lankan constitution say? We will look at it. It says that there is a procedure for the president to, what you say, go ahead with the uh, pardon, and it says that the constitution lays down a procedure that says the president must must this is very important, must get a report from the trial judge before going ahead with the pardoning. So he should get a trial judge, from a report from the trial judge, and the attorney general advice on the, what you say, entire case, and the recommendation from the minister for justice before he can pardon a convict. So this is what the Sri Lankan constitution actually lays down the procedure for the president to go ahead with the pardon. But there is again a point that he has gone over all these procedures. He has not really looked into the procedures, and the pardon was against the procedure of the Sri Lankan constitution. So this very clearly makes a point that there is a possibility that the pardon is on the basis of the electoral or the elections, parliamentary elections, which is bound to take place, or which is scheduled to take place on April 25th. So there is a clear procedures laid by the constitution, but things have going as a manner or against the procedure of the Sri Lankan constitution. So when we were looking at the Sri Lankan soldier on a death row for murdering eight Tamilian or Tamil villagers. Now we will look at what the incident is, so that we will have a better understanding about what actually has taken place, what was the incident, and then why the soldiers were given a pardon now by the president's pardon. So the incident has taken place in the year 2000, that is December 2000. So what is that incident? A group of internally displaced villagers. So these villages were displaced because of the ongoing LTT war then. Because of the then ongoing LTT war, which was, what do you say, between the LTTs and the government of Sri Lanka, or the military of the Sri Lanka. So when this was going on, many of the villages had displaced, and then they were this the villages which were dominated or part of the Tamilians were actually being flushed out, and it was taken control by the Sri Lankan military. So this has taken place, and the people, when the villagers have moved out of it, so at one given point of time, or else they wanted to come back to the villages and have a look at the homes and have a look at their war ravaged homes. So this incident has taken place with that villagers who wanted to come back to their village because they were displaced by the Sri Lankan military, that because of the LTT war, feeling that there could be the possibility that the villages were Tamilians and they could be the sympathizers of the LTT. So they were displaced, and these displaced villagers, they wanted to come back and then see their war ravaged homes. Which place is that? That is Mirusuville in the Jaffna Peninsula. So this Mirusuville is a place or the village in the Jaffna Peninsula, and we see that many of the Tamilians are in the Jaffna Peninsula of the Sri Lanka country. So the Jaffna Peninsula, which is dominated or which has a maximum people, that is the Tamilians, is definitely being targeted, as we can see, because of that LTT and the Sri Lankan government war against the LTT. So this, what has happened is, the victims, they were, when they have come back, then they were blindfolded. All these people, they were blindfolded, and their bodies were later on found in a sewer. That means their throats were slit and they were, what you say, murdered. So this is the incident actually wherein the now the president of Sri Lanka, Gotabaya Rajapaksa has granted the pardon to the Sri Lankan soldier. So what they have done is they have taken back, they have taken these people, the three boys aged, the victims, everyone, they were in the age of 5, 13 and 15. They were actually blindfolded and then their bodies were found in a sewer with their throat slits. That means they were killed or murdered. And there were one person who has escaped from this entire tragedy of the murder, and then he has led the military police to the spot, and that means he has brought back the military police that these incidents has taken place, and he was the what is a crucial witness in the entire murder of the Mirusuvil in the Jaffna Peninsula. So that is the incident which actually based on this soldier, the Sri Lankan soldier, has been granted the pardon by the president. And this Mirusuvil massacre, in the Mirusuvil massacre, military police has immediately detained, because it was a military police which was brought in by one of the person who has escaped, and then this person has become the crucial witness in the case or the murder case. So the military police has detained these soldiers immediately, and then they have denied them the impunity, that is the freedom or liberty. So the military police has done their job immediately, that by detaining the soldier, so that the soldier will not be given any kind of impunity or the liberty or the freedom that he would escape from the murder, because one of the person who has the villager who has escaped from the municipal, and he has brought the military police to the spot, has become a crucial witness. So when there is a witness, so it is very difficult for the incident, or else here in this case the Sri Lankan soldier, to get any kind of freedom or liberty. And they were actually the five soldiers wherein they were indicted, that means they were impeached or charged in the Mirusuvil massacre. In the Mirusuvil massacre, five soldiers were indicted or they were impeached, and a special provision for having a trial bench before the three high court judge benches was invoked. So the military police, what they have done in regards to not giving any impunity or freedom or liberty, and then these five soldiers by the military police, when they were handed over, then it was very clear that they were impeached or charged on a special provision that a trial be taken up by a bench of three high court judges. This is important. That means the incident was very serious, that it was taken up by a three high court judge bench, that is three judge bench of the Sri Lankan High Court. It was actually being taken up, so it was invoked. So definitely there was a case, the incident, that the five soldiers were being charged, and then we have seen that entirely after that, the case or the trial, that is a slow and a tedious trial, this has become a very slow and tedious trial, and then it ended in the year 2015. When was the incident? The incident was in the year 2000. The incident which has taken place was in the year 2000, and it has ended in 2015, wherein only one of them out of the five soldiers, only one of them, that is Sunil Ratnayaka, was found guilty. He was sentenced to death, but there is a moratorium on execution since 1970. So definitely there is a point of view that there is the trial or the case which has been taken up is not really been taken up in a true sense, and then the trial has been ended in 2015, making sure that the entire five soldiers who were involved or charged in regards to the murder of the villagers in the Mirusuvil in the Jaffna Peninsula haven't got any kind of justice. That is what is a concern, and the people, when the president of Sri Gotabaya Rajapaksa has granted a pardon, it evoked a sense of discomfort that people or the Tamilians in Sri Lanka did not, accept the pardon of the president. And we have also had this challenges which are in place. We will look at them so that you will have a better understanding of the entire incident, and then how the things have been folded, so that there is a concern from each and every institution, from each and every angle. What is that we will look at? So the exercise of power of pardon, it should actually be an act of compassion, but not a tool for political or electoral messaging. So it is very clear now that the power of pardon by the president is a kind of compassion. That means he wanted to actually make sure that he would release them. The soldier would, I mean, the Sri Lankan soldier would be released. So that was an instant, the power of pardon, that an act of compassion and not a tool for political or electoral message. But if you look at it, it is not an act of compassion, but it is an act of political or electoral message. As we have looked at, there is a, what is a chance in the month of April 2020 that the parliamentary elections would take place in the Sri Lanka. Because of that, this has been taken up, or the granting of the president pardon has come up. And the Tamil leadership, this is now who is being actually worried, the Tamilians or the Tamil leadership and the individual politicians, along with the United Nations Human Rights High Commission, and along with human rights commission, rights watchdog bodies have questioned. This is what the critics is challenge to the government of the Sri Lanka, that it has been questioned the release of the soldier, rightly calling it an affront. So it is very clear that the entire leadership of the Tamil or the Tamilians and the individual politicians, along with the politicians and the Tamilians, the United Nations Human Rights High Commission, UNHRIC, is also, along with the rights watchdog bodies, they are not really happy with the way the president pardon has come up at this juncture. That is what is important at this juncture, because it is raising a lot of questions in regards to the release of the Sri Lankan soldier who was involved in the murder of the villagers in the Mirusuville massacre. So this is a cause of concern which is raised not only by the Tamil leadership, not only by the individual politicians of the Sri Lankan, but the United Nations Human Rights High Commissioner and Rights Watchdog is a question being raised by both of them. And we have seen that the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has sent a message to everyone, that is exactly the one to the his supporters among the Sinhales, that he would not let war heroes languish in prison. So it is very clear that if this is a right, and in fact the kind of, what is a pardon to the soldier, is being sent a message to the entire supporters of his supporters, and amongst his supporters there are the Sinhalises also. Though he is making it very clear to the supporters and to the Sinhales that he will make sure that the war heroes will not be stayed, or they will not stay in the prison. What kind of war they are talking about, why they are war heroes? It is a war in regards to the LTT, a war against the LTTs. So the one that is the Sri Lankan military or the soldiers who have been languishing or being part, or they are in the prisons for such a long time, they will not be stayed in the prison, they would be released. That is what the message is being given by the President Rajapaksa. So it is very clear that he is supporting, or is for the Sinhales and is against the Tamilians. This is a cause of concern. Why this is a cause of concern? It is not a cause of concern only to the Tamilians in Sri Lanka. It is a cause of concern to the Tamilians and to the government of India, because it is the Tamilians, those are the one who are, what do you say, have been migrated from the Tamil Nadu into the Jaffna Peninsula. So definitely there could be pressure by the Tamilian or the Tamilians or the Tamil Nadu government onto the Indian government, and further Indian government would be trying to resolve the issue in regards to not targeting the Tamilians after Rajapaksa, that is President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has, what do you say, become the president, and now the next elections, that is the parliamentary elections, also would again create a kind of threat to the Tamilians or the Tamilian politicians who would be contesting in the elections, that is in the month of April 25th, 2020. So it is a cause of concern how India would take up the issue with the Sri Lanka in regards to the bilateral issues, or dealing with it in regards to diplomatically how the Tamilians will be protected, not only because of the pardon of the soldier, president pardon to the soldier, but also in regards to the kind of making sure that the Tamilians are protected. They are, what do you say, having some confidence on the Indian government, and India will deal it positively and then diplomatically, so that Tamilians will not be targeted because of the because of the pardon of, that is the president's pardon on the Sri Lankan soldiers. So this is very important again when we are talking about in regards to mains point of view how India's foreign policy towards Sri Lanka would be based on the president pardon, that is granting pardon to the soldier. Which soldier? It is a Sri Lankan soldier, because he is very clear that the war heroes should not languish in the prison. So the question arises, the foreign policy towards Sri Lanka based on or on the sidelines of the Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's pardon. Though the pardon granted at a time when the country's focus is fighting in COVID-19 is a serious setback to the hopes that accountability could be brought to Sri Lanka through domestic mechanisms. So it is now important that how the president of Sri Lanka, that is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, will make sure that he would bring to the notice, or it would create a confidence to the people of the Sri Lankans. It could be respective of the Sinhalese and the Tamilians also, that what kind of accountability is been, what is sent a message by the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa that he is really, what do you say, for not only for Sinhalese but also for the Tamilians who are also the part of citizens of Sri Lankan. So this is a point, or it is a big setback, serious setback to the government, that is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, wherein the focus has to be fighting on the COVID, but he has shifted his focus towards the pardon. And this is a cause of concern that how the accountability would be brought back to Sri Lanka in regards to the domestic mechanism. And what domestic mechanism is going on at this moment is to make sure that the war heroes will not languish in the prison, and then they would be granted bail or they would be released, and then Sinhalese or the supporters of the Gotabaya Rajapaksa, that is the president of Sri Lanka, will be happy. The supporters will be happy, and that is why, because it is making sure that it is a political pardon. That is what is being mentioned here in the as a headlines of the editorials. It is political pardon. So any pardon should not be based on the political, but it should be based on the way, the reality, or the kind of, what you say, the exact findings it has to take place, because it is as per the constitution, Sri Lankan constitution. There is a procedure which is laid down wherein the president must get a report from trial judge, report from attorney general's advice, there should be advice and recommendation from the minister for justice, but all that is not being taken into consideration. But the things have followed in such a way that is really causing, what do you say, convenience or the matter of concern to the government itself, and how best the government of India would look into it in regards to the foreign policy towards Sri Lanka, and then how best we can go ahead with the bilateral issues taken up. When the bilateral issues are taken up between India and Sri Lanka, then the protection of Tamilians in Sri Lanka would also be coming to the forefront of the discussions on the table, and then the diplomatic relations or the diplomats would come into existence, and then they would make sure that the issue would be resolved and the Tamilians would be protected or given some kind of confidence that the Sri Lankan president Gotabaya Rajapaksa will not harm virtually the Tamilians or the Tamilian politicians in Sri Lanka. So that is how you need to look at the entire editorial, so that you would be having a thorough understanding in regards to the prelims and mains point of view. And now we will go back to the second article, that is looking beyond. So articles talks about looking beyond. So we should look beyond what? We should look beyond diagnosis and quarantine. It's not just diagnosis and quarantine what it is required. Yes, at this moment it is imperative that we need to focus on the diagnosis and quarantine, no doubt about it. But along with this, there is something else we need to look at. If you are not trying to look at those things, then it would be and what do you say, kind of tsunami which would fall onto Indian or to, what do you say, Indian government itself, and then impact or affect the entire citizens of the nation. So it is very important that trying to look at the diagnosis and quarantine, or the methods involved in the diagnosis and the quarantine, it is imperative for the government to look beyond. So what is that? We will look at it, because we need to look beyond, because the kind of approach or the kind of, what you say, the virus, what is a SARS-CoV-2, that is COVID-19, is going ahead, is at a very faster pace, and it is changing its what do you say, strain or sequencing is being changed, and that is what we need to look beyond. It is not just diagnosis and quarantine. What we need to look beyond is to make sure that the clinically tested drug is very important. Clinically tested drug is very important at this junction. So when we are talking about the clinically tested drug, it is the efforts put in by the researchers and the laboratories, and then in regards to the genome sequencing of the genome, and then making sure that how best we can try to go ahead with finding the sequencing of the genome, and then that could be possibility or the step forward or a platform to go ahead with the clinically tested drugs. So diagnosis and quarantine is essential at the need, or it is a need of the hour, but we need to think beyond, because if we are not thinking beyond, then it would be a cause of concern, because the way the coronavirus is mutating is it at a very fast pace, and we are unable to try to get the sequencing of the genome. So looking beyond is imperative at this junction. So we will look at that. So mutation of the virus, mutation of known viruses will periodically cause havoc. Yes, that is what is happening, because we have seen in the past that the viruses are creating havoc and chaos across the, what do you say, countries. We have seen it in the past that China or the Southeast Asian countries have been affected. Even Africa have been affected with few of the various, what is few of the viruses, and then India also has been affected because of the virus. So we will look at them, just couple of viruses wherein now it is the COVID-19, but the earlier wherein we have also faced the same kind of situation or havoc is with the Ebola, Zika virus, Nipah virus, SARS, MERS, and H1N1 and H1N5 also. And now we have seen the, what you said, SARS-CoV and then SARS-CoV-2, that is COVID. So these are all the viral onslaughts, and these are bound to continue on to the humankind. I repeat, these are bound to continue on the humankind. That is what is bound to continue. It is a viral onslaught. So it is imperative that we should be expecting that along with this, what is COVID-19, there is always a possibility that a new virus would come up and it would again create a panic or a havoc, and then, but you say, make sure that the many lives have been lost, and this is what is a concern, and we need to look beyond it. So that it is imperative that we need to focus on this. And what are the main reasons for this is that the viral infection seems to be the proximity and the contact. So it is a viral infection which is the, what do you say, the cause of all these viruses what we have looked at: Ebola, Zika, Nipah, SARS, MERS, H1N1, H1N5, SARS-CoV-2, that is SARS-CoV-1, and SARS-CoV-2, that is COVID-19. And all these are because of the viral infections. And viral infection because as the humans are having proximity and contact with the animal, this is the major reason. So it is very important that it is now the humans have to learn that we need to be or not having a more proximity or contact with the animals, including the wild animals, because many of them have become an exotic food menu. So as they have become an exotic food menu, slowly the women, slowly the humans are getting in having the proximity and contact with the animals because of the food menu. And then we have seen that it is the bats and then the seafoods which are, what do you say, this source of the viruses. All this what we have seen, yes, definitely it is from the bat, and then it is from the, what do you say, the various, even in regards to animals, seafoods also we have seen that these are the source of the new virus. And once humans are being part of, what do you say, those seafoods and the bats, or the one which are on the platter of on the table for the food menu, so it is causing the source of virus to be infected even to the humans. So this has to be, what do you say, taken care. And this has been actually the Wuhan outbreak. We have seen that it has happened in the Wuhan, or the epicenter of the COVID-19 is Wuhan in the Hubei province of the China. And we also will look at the challenges what we are facing because of the COVID-19. And that is in India, the kind of population what we have, that is in regards to the density of population. And then it is not only the density of population, what is also cause of concern is that we have unsatisfactory hygiene condition. That means we do not have any kind of awareness. Even though awareness have been created, many of the Indians or the Indian citizens do not really focus on the hygiene condition. And because of the unsatisfactory hygiene condition, and the other reason is that the population density, which would be, or which would create a very serious situation when the disease actually originate, or it, what you say, spreads in India. So that is the problem, that is a challenge, that is the most concern for the India or Indian government or else it could be for each and every individual or the citizens of India, that the unsatisfactory hygiene condition and the population and lack of awareness is also a great threat to our, what do you say, health crisis or health infrastructure or to the loss of lives. So this is a very important, or it is a challenging task for India to make sure that we come out of it. So we have to go ahead with targeting the population to be, what you say, reduced, or wherever the density of population is there, we should make sure that once they detected the virus has been detected, make sure that social distance is happening, and then that is what we are actually going at with the social distancing. But aftermath of the national lockdown, we have seen that, what is all the migrants, they wanted to, or they're wishing to get back to the villages of the state, and in the process of that, they are being, what do you say, congregation is taking place, all, I mean, everyone is coming together, and there is lot of, what do you say, uh, people coming in close contact, which is against the main point, or the intention was to make sure that social distancing by the national lockdown. But we have seen the other side of it, of the national lockdown, is that the people are coming together, the migrant workers would wish to move to their respective houses or the villages, and that is creating again a serious problem that the virus might spread very virulently in different parts of the villages or the states. That is a challenge now. And in India, the options always are limited to diagnose. So when we are talking about the health infrastructure in regards to India, health infrastructure in regards to India is not that too high, or it is poor in regards to that. So when we are talking about the diagnosis, when we are talking about the hospitals, when we are talking about the nurses or the frontline workers, definitely there are limited resources. So with the limited resources, as per the WHO, with the limited resources and as per the WHO protocols, seems to be that the exclusive domain of the, that is, we have only one institution, that is the National Institute of Virology, which is in Pune, and it is actually, what is providing, or it is passing on few of the designated centers to go ahead with the diagnosis, and this is the one which is area of concern. And then India, or else health ministry, has made sure that the diagnostic centers or the laboratory centers have extended, and they have extended almost up to 70 plus. So not only just National Institute of Virology, initially it was only one which was diagnosing the symptoms of the COVID-19 patient. But now later on, it has been the NIV has designated few of the centers wherein they are also part of diagnosis, so that they can go ahead with the test which can make sure that the report is whether positive or negative, and then we can try to quarantine them if necessary, or else make sure that they would be quarantined and then looked into, what you say, they would be under observations, and then later on they would be moving out of the quarantine area. And then what is important is sequencing is important of the virus. Why the sequencing is important is because we need to look beyond, we need to not just focus on the diagnosis, and then in regards to making sure that we have all the quarantine facilities in place. No, we should go beyond that. We should, what we need to go beyond that is we need to come out with the clinical tested drug. As we all are aware of that, clinically tested drugs will definitely take 2 years, even though they, I mean, all the scientists and the researchers together come and then unite and work, minimum it will take 2 years of, what is the time to identify the, or to come out with a clinically tested drug. But still we need to hope, what do you say, have positive, and then we should make sure that we are looking beyond the diagnosis and quarantine. That means we need to go ahead with coming up with the clinically tested drug. So we need to go ahead first for clinical tested drug. What is important is sequencing is important. So we need to go ahead with the sequencing the genome, that is the virus genome. We need to make sure that, or else it is very important that when we are going ahead with sequencing the genome which is isolated from an infected patient in India is important. Here I am talking about in India. Why? I mean, we will look at it. Why only in India we will look at it? Because the epicenter of the virus was Wuhan, that is from China, and then it has been transported, or it has, what do you say, moved, or it has uh, attacked, or it has crossed over the borders to India and then across the globe. but we need to make sure that we sequence the genome of the virus, which we isolate from the infected patient in India. So when we look at this COVID-19, it is an RNA virus. Why it is an RNA virus? Because it has only RNA and it doesn't have the DNA. Because if you look at any organism, or most of the organisms are having two, that is RNA and DNA, that is ribonucleic acid and then dinucleic acid. So it is this which is actually required when you are going ahead with the sequencing. But because of the what you say COVID-19, which has only RNA virus, that is a single strand. It is a single strand, that is it is having RNA and it is not having DNA, absence of DNA, and this would require conversion to DNA and then sequence the alphabet. So this is becoming a very tough, because as the COVID-19 is only a single strand, that is RNA. So we need, I mean, the researchers in regards to the sequencing of the genome, what they have to do is, it is required that they convert the RNA to the DNA. Recombinant technology or sequencing has to come into existence, recombinant. So when we are talking about this, it is requiring the conversion to DNA. That is what is important now. And this COVID-19, again from prelims point of view, is less than 30 kb, that is 30,000 alphabets in size. In regards to the sequencing language we are talking about, we are talking about the sequencing language, which is less than 30 kb, which is as equivalent to 30,000 alphabets in size in regards to, and it can be sequenced. We are talking about the genome sequencing language, and then it can be sequenced in just 24 hours in India. So this is again a positive sign that we can go ahead with the sequencing, and then once we go ahead with the sequencing of the genome, then we will understand the place or the origin of the virus, and then we can also go ahead with making sure that the drug can be taken into confidence that there would be the virus, the clinically tested virus can take place. And the virus in India is different. See, look at it now. Why I was saying that patients in India can be tested to sequence the genome, I was saying infected patients in India, because the virus what is in India is different from the virus which has actually erupted or started in China. On the basis of genome sequencing, if you look at what we have identified or what the reports have got through the National Institute of Virology of Pune, when the scientists or the researchers have gone ahead with the genome sequencing, they have identified the sequencing of the genome founded in the infected patients of India is different from the virus or the COVID-19 which was in the infected person of patient in China. So what is this is happening? That means mutation is happening. The virus is changing very fast, and that is becoming very tough to make sure that we find out a clinically tested drug to the drug saying that okay, this drug can be used for the virus across the world. No, it is not, because it is changing its what do you say this strand, it is changing the genomes, the sequencing we are unable to find out, the genome is being changed each and every time, and that is what is the worry of the moment. That is, the virus is evolving rapidly. This is very important, the keyword, it is evolving. It is evolving so rapidly that it is very tough, and it is becoming difficult for the researchers and the WHO altogether that to find out a clinically tested drug. When we are talking about rapidly evolving, that means mutation is taking place, that means the change of the sequencing or the genome is taking place, and this is seen in the virus isolates, in the United States, for example, is different from what we have seen is in the China. This is a cause of concern now. So this is how you need to look at it when we are trying to get what is a more of information if a question is asked in the science and technology of the prelims point of view, or also in regards to the main points of view. I suppose you are all understanding when you are watching this video the importance of looking at it in depth, so that a question being framed in regards to the science and technology in prelims, factual or analytical, and also in regards to the mains point of view. So we need to understand the proteins, how many proteins are there, that is you have a E protein, and then membrane protein, and then you have what you say envelope protein. So all this will create a kind of what you say an entire what you say virus, and then that is the entire membrane or the envelope of the virus. So here in this case, It is the spike protein along with the E protein, membrane protein, and there is one more protein, that is a spike protein. So it is the spike protein. It is the spike protein which gets into the human cell, and how does it gets into human cell? Because this spike protein will get into the human cells, because the human cell will have a receptor that is called as ACE2. It has a receptor called as ACE2, number 2, ACE2. So this is the receptor of the human cell which is accepting the spike protein, and this receptor, when it is what you say bonding with, because this spike protein has an affinity with this receptor, that is ACE2, when it is binding or bonding with this, it is bonding in a very what you say strong bonding is taking place, and because of the strong bonding or the affinity between the spike protein and then the ACE2 receptor of the human cell, even a small amount of virus entering into, that is a COVID-19 virus entering into the human cell, is able to multiply at a very faster pace, and that is a cause of concern, that it is causing lot of what you said problem to the human life. So we have looked at the mutation, that is what is happening, or else it is difficult for the sequencing to be taken up, and this is what is very evident from the genome sequencing what has been done in the Pune, that is NIV, National Institute of Virology, is different from the genome sequencing which has been performed in the China, and now again the virus which is isolated in the United States is different from the China. This is the cause of concern because of the mutation of the COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2, which has the ability to go ahead with the mutation, and this has to be what do you say, there has to be a deadlock here, there has to be, and all the researchers have to come out of it, and that is what the article was talking about. Looking beyond, we have to look beyond this mutation and then try to get the control, or the what is the entire control on this, and then make sure that the virus is what is a genome sequencing takes place, and wherein there could be a possibility that or else when we are talking about RNA, you will have a what you say messenger or recombinant technology used here, and then it requires conversion to the DNA, and then thereby again make sure that we find out the genome sequencing, which will be a step further for the clinically tested drugs. And then if you look at this, yes, there could be a possibility from other side. We are talking about that, we were saying that genome sequencing is different from the China's virus which actually erupted, and then India, and then what you will say we are talking about even US. So there is a possibility, not to rule out, and then it is not that we are having critics against the what you say NIV, but there could be possibility that sequencing error also can take place, and it needs to be realized that the copying mechanism of RNA to DNA can make errors. So we were actually looking at here that the conversion of RNA conversion to DNA, this is what we were talking about, RNA conversion to DNA. So when we are into that process, and then we can make sure that we can find out the clinical tested drugs. So there is a possibility that when we are going ahead with the researchers are going ahead with the copying mechanism of RNA to DNA, because it is a single strand RNA, we wanted to go ahead with the copying mechanism, wherein copying of RNA to DNA, wherein we will have two then, RNA and DNA. In this entire mechanism, there could be an error. No doubt we are not having what you say confidence in the in our research what do you say scientists across the world, India or across the world, but the kind of mutation which is happening in the COVID-19, that is a worry, and then that could what do you say really make a difficult task for the researchers and the scientists, and that could make errors. That is the most concern now, and it is also important to sequence the virus isolates in at least three different, so the kind of what you say measure has come up for a suggestion that the virus can be isolated, and then it has to be tested thrice or in three different institutions in India, so that we will try to look at whether the sequencing error is happening, or if it is happening we can try to eliminate them. So the reason why we need to sequence the virus or isolate the virus and then go ahead with the testing in the three different institutions is to make sure that there is no chance of sequencing error which would take place, and then we need to eliminate that sequencing error, so that a knowledge of genome sequence is essential to design drugs and vaccines. This line is important when we are talking about looking beyond. Yes, what we need to look beyond is a knowledge of genome sequencing. It's not that we do not have the knowledge now, because the way the virus is mutating, because the way the virus is mutating, it is creating, or it is, what do you say, making tough for the researchers and the scientists to go ahead with sequencing the genome of COVID-19. But we have to think beyond, we have to look beyond, we should definitely have a knowledge, and then we will definitely come to the conclusion. And then essentially, once we get the knowledge of the genome sequencing of the COVID-19, which is mutating very fast, once we try to get that, yes, then the drugs and the vaccine can be designed. That is what the article was talking about, looking beyond. And this is very important when you're writing an answer in regards to a question asked in the science and technology of the mains paper, and then you are now equipped, and then you are having a thorough understanding about the entire, what you say, genome sequencing, at least in regards to making sure that you are not a, what is a scientist or a, what is a research scholar doing research in regards to the COVID-19, but at least making sure that you would have a better understanding when you are going ahead with a descriptive answer in the mains. And this is what is important, the basics which is important, and the rest you can, what you say, try to make sure that you would add to your answer writings. And then what are the short term and long term is, we have now the hydroxychloroquine, and this is been, what you say, requested by many of the doctors to be used for the patients of the COVID-19. And this is actually an anti-malarian drug which is actually given to the people who were suffering from the malaria. And this, since this hydrochloroquine can make the acidic endosome compartment, so we are getting in the technicality of it, that is, it can make the acidic endosome compartment in which the virus replicates alkaline to prevent the process. So this is very important. So we need to make sure that the process we are talking about, the genome sequencing wherein the mutation take place, so if we can try to make sure that, or the patient is given hydroxychloroquine, that will, what do you say, halt this drug will halt the virus to replicate alkaline to prevent the process. That means the multiplication, wherein I was talking about the in the human cell, I was talking of the ACE2 receptor, and then spike protein having an affinity to the ACE2 receptor. And then again, once they have that bonding, then immediately multiplication take place. So what can happen is, this will prevent, hydroxychloroquine will prevent, or it can make acidic endosome compartment in which the virus replicates alkaline to prevent the process. So there the break or the multiplication is been broken there, the chain, and then there is a possibility that the patient, what you say, the victim of the coronavirus patient, or we have seen that many of them have been cured, and this is because of the hydroxychloroquine, which is been at this moment used as a method to make sure that the virus doesn't multiply in the human cell. And to the other method is to make sure that to try a passive immunization. So what is this passive immunization? That is with plasma, which derived from the convalescent patient, the patient who has been affected, and then we can make sure that it is completely required. So this process is again a technical process, that is a passive immunization which can take place with the plasma, making sure that we can by using the, what you say, the patient who has been affected, by again going ahead with the passive immunization, we can completely recover the virus which has been infecting the human body. And the other one is to clone the B cells. You have the cells, and we can clone the B cells from such patients who are, what you say, affected, and make a therapeutic. When we are saying therapeutic, that means a beneficial antibodies. So it is important that first we are going ahead with the hydroxychloroquine, and then next we would go ahead with the antibodies, which might again go ahead with the antigens, and then it could be a tough war between the antigens and the antibodies. So now, by the strategy that is cloning the B cells, there is a possibility that a healing or a beneficial antibodies can be come up. And to clone the genome, it to make recombinant antigens. This is what I was talking about, because it is always antigens versus antibodies. It is always antigens versus antibodies, which actually, what you say, a warlike situation takes place in the human body. Whenever the antibodies are given, antigens and again try to, what you say, dominate the antibodies, and then the antibodies would try to again suppress the antigens. So there is always a war like situation, a tug of a war between the antigens and then antibodies. So this clone the genome to make recombinant antigens, and then the test for vaccine would be a potential and a new drug can be designed. So recombinant antigen is required, or when we are talking about the mRNA, this is important. And the virus or its mimic needs to be cultured for drug screening. So we were talking about this genome sequencing, and the other part is that we have to go ahead with the culturing the virus itself. We need to mimic it, so that we will culture it, and once it is cultured we can go ahead with for which will be useful for the screening of the drug. All these approaches would eventually need clinical trials. So ultimately it is the clinical trials which have to be taken forward, but which has to be taken forward on a fast track. And this is important. When we are talking of the fast track, it is not just individual countries or the countries, what do you say, the scientists and the researchers would come together and then work, I mean individually. No, there has to be cooperation. And then when we are talking about cooperation, not just what you say amongst the scientists and the researchers across the world, but also within the country, that is under the office of the Drug Controller General of India. Again, this is very important for prelims point of view and also mains point of view. When there is a question based on the clinical trials or tested drugs, and then which is the office which actually cooperates, and which is a what do you say, a kind of nodal agency, that is the Drug Controller General of India. So we will just look at the institutes which are in India, which will be beneficial in regards to going ahead with the testing the drugs. That is, we have the clinical virology, as we all know, this is very important, and have Pune, and then we have the molecular virology. We have it, that is a regional center for biotechnology at Faridabad, and also you have the Indian Institute of Science at Bangalore, that is in regards to the molecular virology. And you also have a scale up of vaccine production, that is the Serum Institute of India, that is in Pune, and also you have it the Bharat Biotech, which is in Hyderabad. And then you also have a clinical trial and drugs, that is in regards to the, you have one in Ahmedabad, and then Maharashtra, and then Reddy Labs at Hyderabad. So these are the one which are in regards to the clinically trial and drugs tested. You also have the institution which is part of all this is the DNA RNA sequencing expertise. This is very important. That is nothing but National Institute of Biomedical Genomics, that is at Kalyani. So this is important as we are all going ahead with the genome sequencing. And you have the CCMB, that is the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, which is situated in Hyderabad, and the other one is Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology, which is in New Delhi. And why is this important? Why have I taken up this? Is because there is always a possibility in the prelims. There is always a possibility in the prelims that could be a question being asked in the prelims based on the COVID-19, but nothing related to genome sequencing. If UPSC, I mean, doesn't want to ask any questions in the prelims in regards to genome sequencing, but there could be a possibility that he would give the match the followings institutions at one end and then the places at one end, and then you have to go ahead with the match the followings. You have to go ahead with the match the followings. So this would again, what do you say, a kind of factual and analytical question for prelims. That is why I have taken up these institutes in India. So make sure that you are trying to go, I mean, you should definitely go through it, that which will be useful for your prelims, because we know that all this, what you say, they should all come together, and this is what is important at this time, that they are all cooperation under the Drug Controller General of India. So when we are talking all this, there is always a possibility that you will have the match the following from A side and B side. A side having all the, what is the institutions, and to the right side you will have the states or the cities, specifically focusing on the cities, and then you have to match it. And then again you're having one what do you say, one question in your kitty here. So I hope the entire what do you say, the class or the session was very informative, and it was also very important for your prelims 2020 and descriptive wise in regards to the mains 2020. So Please make sure that you like the video, you subscribe the video, you hit the bell button for further notification whenever you are viewing or watching the YouTube. That is the Let's Crack UPSC CSE English channel, and you can also subscribe the UPSC CSE English channel by using my code SBT10. That means when you are using my code SBT10, that is Sandeep Bhushan Thummala, you would get 10% on the amount which is actually prescribed for the subscription. So go ahead with subscription with minimum of 24 months, wherein you will be beneficial and you will save a lot of money. And then I would say thank you for watching this, and then see you tomorrow at 7 p.m.